When you're first thinking about making a classical recording, it can be quite overwhelming to know where to start and which questions you need to answer to make it happen. There are so many facets to a recording, and it's not always clear what's your responsibility and what can be left to your recording team.
In this video, we're going to talk about the various elements of pre-production for a classical recording, splitting them into three main categories: creative, logistical, and things the recording team will deal with and you don't need to worry about. Let's start with the creative decisions. These are mostly decisions that you'll need to make first, which will inform the other decisions that need to be made later.
The most important question to ask yourself is, what's the final output? What's the product that you want to end up with? Firstly, what music are you recording? And then whether you're looking to make a CD, or a video of a few pieces for promotion on social media, or a film of a concert to go up on YouTube or Vimeo. What's the length of the music you want to record? Knowing what you want to end up with helps you to be able to work backwards towards figuring out the rest of the pre-production.
If you're producing an album, you'll want to decide whether you're releasing it independently or through a record label. These days, lots of record labels act more as marketing and distribution managers, meaning that they don't fund the making of the recording itself, but do still deal with the manufacturing of any CDs, streaming platform distribution, and getting the recording into the hands of reviewers. Some record labels will do this for a cut of the sales income, but most will expect you to pay an upfront fee.
All of these factors, along with a general understanding of your budget, will help you to decide whether you're looking to record a live concert or work on a dedicated recording session. If you'd like to learn more about the differences between those two options, see our other video on exactly that topic.
Something that we always advise our clients to do is to find a couple of examples of audio or video recordings that they like. It absolutely doesn't have to be a recording of the same piece of music, but it's generally useful if it's of the same sort of ensemble. Having a recording or two in mind as examples of work you like will help your recording team to know exactly what you're looking for.
This is especially useful as some of the elements, like colour grading and the direct to reverberant balance, can be very subjective and can have a large impact on the kind of venue that will suit and the techniques used by your recording team.
Now you've got an overview of the creative decisions, it's time to think about the logistics. We're going to go through a timeline of questions that need to be answered so you can see how everything fits together.
The first logistical question is, of course, what's the music and what's the ensemble? This might seem very obvious, and in many instances it will be, but if you don't have the answers to those two questions, it makes it a lot harder to answer all the rest.
The next issue is one of copyright. This could be a whole video on its own, so we'll just touch on some headlines here. If you'd like us to do a full video on copyright with a proper music copyright expert, let us know in the comments.
The basics of copyright are that there are three forms of copyright you need to worry about when it comes to the audio. The performance, which the performing musicians own by default. The mechanical, this is basically to do with who owns the data recorded at the recording, which by default goes to whoever has paid for the engineering team. And then the composition, which belongs to the composer by default. Depending on your particular situation, you'll need to consider the relevant copyright implications. A good recording team will often be able to advise you on this, and here in the UK, groups like the MCPS exist, to whom you can simply submit paperwork, and they'll tell you how much money you need to pay to clear the composition copyright licenses.
On the video side of things, the primary concern is who owns the composition copyright. This is generally dealt with via the publisher of the music, or the composer directly. The cost and agreement will differ depending on whether you are releasing the video on a free streaming platform like YouTube or Vimeo, or behind a paywall. However, if you're just using small clips and non-complete pieces for promotional purposes, this is generally more straightforward, as it may be covered with the copyright license obtained through the MCPS, but this varies a lot and sometimes requires an additional synchronization license.
The next, and possibly most important logistical step, is to work out where you're going to record. If you're planning a live recording, then the venue might already be set by what you've planned for your concert. But if that's not the case, then picking the right venue is a step worth spending some real time on. Again, your recording team can likely help, but finding a venue with the right acoustics, lack of ambient noise, appropriate amount of space, and visuals that match your artistic aims is key to making a good recording.
If you've already got musicians lined up for a concert, you may need to reassess any fees they're being paid if there's an audio or video recording involved, as musicians are generally due higher fees.
Similarly, when are you going to record, and when do you want the finished product to be released? This will be important for the recording team to know in advance, so they can make sure that A, they're available on the dates you want to record, and B, they're able to complete the post-production within the time frame you're looking for.
Now you've got all that sorted, you'll need to consider whether any instruments need to be hired in,
Like a grand piano,
and whether any instrument tuners need to be booked.
like a piano tuner,
For a recording session,
or a concert.
the kind of piano tuning required is a bit more specialised than a standard household upright piano tuning, so you'll really want to make sure you've got a proper specialist lined up. Again, consult with your recording team and the venue to see if they're able to recommend anyone.
For a recording session that features a piano prominently, you'll need a minimum of 2 tunings per day. In an ideal world, you'd have the tuner on site and on standby all day, so any concerns could be dealt with immediately, but that is usually cost prohibitive.
You'll then need to put your recording team in touch with the venue's team so they can liaise about their logistics. It's worth staying in the loop for this conversation, as you may well need to approve any additional time required by the recording team in the venue to get equipment in and out before and after the recording, which of course will have a financial impact.
Something that can easily be overlooked, but is more important than it sounds, is ensuring you've thought about refreshments for the musicians. A recording day will likely have 2 short breaks and a lunch break, and nothing keeps musicians going like knowing where their next cup of coffee is coming from.
This can be as simple as informing your musicians that they'll need to bring a thermos and a packed lunch, or being confident that your venue has a coffee shop near enough that it's not going to cause any issues in a 15-minute tea break, or organising with the venue to have some refreshments available on site. The same goes for food at lunchtime.
There's no problem with telling everyone they need to bring their own packed lunch, but you need to make sure everyone is aware of that expectation, else you could end up with hungry musicians or a longer break than you'd intended as everyone drives 30 minutes away to the nearest shop selling sandwiches.
True story. Finally, though this can be done earlier in the process if you'd like, you'll need to send scores of all the music in advance of the session to the recording team so they can do score preparation. This is also when you'll want to have a final conversation with the team to firm up the recording schedule.
If you're doing a session recording, the producer will want to have a chat with you about the order of pieces to be recorded, and they'll likely draw up a rough schedule for which pieces should be recorded when. There's an art to not putting the hardest pieces just before lunch.
So there's already quite a lot of stuff that's been dealt with, but you've probably spotted that there are quite a few things missing that would be needed before a recording can start. And you'd be quite right, but the good news is that these things are taken care of by the recording team, and you don't need to worry about them. We're not going to go into details, but here's a non-exhaustive list of the things that the recording team will sort out for you.
Get in and get out logistics.
Access for getting equipment in and out, lighting for video, venue restrictions on places you can put cameras and microphones. If it isn't the same team for audio and video, then liaising with each other. Watching and listening to any examples you've sent of material you like to get a feel for your aims with the project. Camera placement, making a microphone plan and audio equipment kit list, studying the score to get an understanding of the music. Who's the contact on the ground for the musicians, i.e. who can make decisions on behalf of the musicians or client? Who's the contact of the venue, i.e. who do we talk to about getting air conditioning systems turned off, or double-checking cable runs aren't interfering with other venue necessities? Which room can be turned into a control room? Does the video team need a control room? If so, are there 2 separate rooms that can be control rooms for audio and video, or will it need to be a combined room, and will that work for the audio team? Power distribution, potential ambient noise issues, think road noise, airport proximity, etc. How close can they get vehicles to unload the equipment, and where can the vehicles be parked after that? Does the venue have a noise abatement curfew that will affect de-rigging and getting out?
This is a non-exhaustive list of things you don't need to worry about. All of these things are things that your recording team should take care of themselves, and if any item needs to be brought to your attention, then they'll do that on a case-by-case basis.
Once you've thought about all these creative and logistical things, you've completed the pre-production, and the next step is the recording itself. Hopefully, this video has given you a better understanding of the sorts of questions that need to be answered before a classical recording begins.
If you'd like us to go into any more detail about any of these elements, then let us know in the comments.
Until the next video, happy recording!